Today we're going to talk about iBuyers and the like, Zillow, Opendoor, the pros, the cons, should you not sell to them. Stay tuned to the end, you might be surprised with my answer. Hello everyone, I'm Zach Walker, your Texas local lender. Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about iBuyers, Zillow, Opendoor, Redfin, the like, all the real estate tech companies. Should you sell your house to them? What are the pros? What are the cons? And it's going to be a good video. Today I want to open this video by saying Zillow has already made an announcement that they will no longer be buying homes. They'll be laying off over 25% of their sales force. So this effectively takes them out of the iBuyer game. There's got to be a reason why they're no longer doing it, because if it was profitable, they certainly would. Let's jump into the pros and cons of selling your house to an iBuyer program so that you can be educated when you get that offer from Opendoor in the mail. Okay, we're going to start off by talking about the pros. What are some positives about selling your home to an iBuyer program that you may want to consider when you get that offer in the mail? The first one being convenience, right? And there's a certain dollar amount that you can place on convenience, knowing that you're not going to have to do a whole lot of negotiating, you're not going to have to list your house, and you're not going to have to go through all the showings and all those things. So if convenience is something that you prioritize, then selling your house to an iBuyer is something that you might think about doing until you see the rest of the video, because we're going to talk about how convenient is it really. While we're talking about the pros, let's go ahead and talk about number two. That's going to be timing. If you're in a situation where you need to sell your home quickly, and maybe you're in a real estate market that's not quite as hot as some of the other ones, then getting an offer in the mail may help you with timing, knowing that you can sell your house quickly to this iBuyer and move on, because they let you pick your closing date. So oftentimes you can commit to them, go under contract, and then schedule your closing out a couple weeks to allow you the time that you need to get ready to make that next move. Specifically, if you don't have anywhere to go or you don't know what your next move is, timing may be something you look at and say, oh, well, that may be a pro of selling to an iBuyer. The third perceived pro of selling to an iBuyer that I can come up with is predictability. You get an offer in the mail. I got one 2 weeks ago. I got an offer in the mail. It told me exactly how much they were willing to pay, and it kind of sort of highlighted their program, but they want you to think that the predictability of it is what's going to make this process very easy, very seamless, very painless. But now let's dive into what those really look like. Let's talk about the cons for a minute. Let's talk about the flip side on convenience. The flip side of that is, yes, it may be convenient looking, but have you looked at the fine print? Did you know, for instance, that the iBuyer is going to send in their very own inspector, very similar to a home inspection, but a very different process. This inspector is specific to the iBuyer and is going to tell them what parts need to be replaced. They are going to drive a very hard bargain with you on exactly what they need replaced, and you won't have a real estate agent as your buffer between you and the buyer, giving you that flexibility and that protection against the direct attack, if you will, of the iBuyer. So is it really convenient? Let's talk about the timing. If you're not in a hot market, well, that's not really the case. In our market currently, you could put a turd sandwich on the market and it's going to sell very quickly because there's no inventory in our market. In our market, we've got 100 pre-qualified buyers and nowhere to put them. So timing may not be anything to even worry about. Also, what are you paying for that timing? What is it going to cost you? We're going to dive into that in a moment. Lastly, the third pro that I gave you was predictability. But is it really that predictable? Yes, they're going to give you a number on a sheet of paper. You know predictably what they're going to pay you, but you would also know that number in a traditional real estate contract. So what's the difference? Well, there isn't one. The only difference is, again, it's not a traditional home inspection, so that's unpredictable. You don't have a real estate agent to help you in the buffer zone. That's unpredictable. So is it truly predictable? Now let's dive into the good part, what I would consider the cons of selling to an iBuyer. The first one is going to be their qualification qualifications. They have a very specific and limited profile of a house that they want to buy. They don't want anything too old. They don't want anything too big. They don't want anything too in disrepair. They have a very small criteria that if your house doesn't fit into it, then you're not going to be a candidate. And let me tell you something. If you got something in the mail, it doesn't mean they actually want to buy it, because once you get on the phone with these people, you're going to walk through an absolute storm of questions, qualifications, paperwork. It's not going to be as easy as you think it is, and your house very well may not even qualify. The second con of selling your home to an iBuyer is going to be the opportunity cost. What is it going to cost for you to sell your home to this iBuyer in terms of percentage of the sale? So in traditional real estate, you're going to pay out 6% to real estate agents plus some closing costs. Did you know that with iBuyer programs, their fees look a whole lot closer to 9 than 6? That's $3,000 for every $100,000 of your home price, right? So that's a big number. Plus, you don't have the professional representation of a real estate agent. So when it comes down to it, the opportunity cost is going to be significantly higher of selling to an iBuyer. And that really does away with the whole predictability, the time. It takes a lot of the pros and just throws them out to the wayside. Lastly, the third con we're going to talk about, and we've already touched on it briefly, is the repairs. So each iBuyer has their own company that's going to come in and do what I'll call a modified inspection of your house. And in this inspection, they're looking for a very specific list of things that they're going to have to fix, change, or redo to make your home marketable. In a traditional real estate deal, when you have a real estate agent, you're going to have an agent as a buffer between you and the buyer to help you negotiate those repairs. Thus, you're going to be able to have some leverage, especially in this market, because there are going to be backup offers. There are going to be people waiting, hoping that this deal falls through. So you can look at a buyer and say, you know what, I don't think we're going to do any repairs because there's 14 more just like you. In an iBuyer situation, there isn't a backup offer. What's the backup offer? I'll wait. There isn't one. And so all of a sudden now you're vulnerable, you're all alone, and you have no backup. Guess what? They're not going to ask you to make the repairs. They're going to send you a list of money that they're just going to take off the top of your house so that they can make the repairs. You don't get to get quotes. You don't get to argue, negotiate, none of that. So really and truly, you're giving away all your leverage, all your control, all your negotiating power, and saying, man, I really hope this house doesn't need repairs. Otherwise, I'm going to get stuck with the bill. So when it comes down to it, you have to ask yourself, do the pros outweigh the cons? I have a really hard time when looking at this list saying, you know what, I think that would be a good situation. I really don't see a positive outcome in these iBuyer situations. Now, that being said, I do know plenty of people who've done it who've had a decent experience. But at the end of the day, I've not met anybody who's done it that says, you know what, I would do that again. If that's you, I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to understand your experience. But all we can do is speak from our experience. And the market tells us I'm probably right. Let me give you a few statistics. For the year 2021, Opendoor recorded a net loss of $1.5 billion. For those of you in the back, did you hear me? How does a property flipper continue to do business while losing $1.5 billion on an annual basis? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So if the market is any indication, Opendoor is following down the same path as Zillow, where in 12, 18 months' time, they're not even going to be in the marketplace anymore. They're going to be gone, poof, just evaporated into thin air, because you cannot continue to operate a business with net losses in the $1 billion every single year. It just doesn't happen. It's impossible to continue. So the iBuyer trend, while a trend, is certainly something you need to be very cautious about as you walk through it, especially because we have a super hot real estate market. I would bet you Opendoor is not going to pay you any more for your house than what the open market would do if you listed it with your local real estate agent. There are tons of great real estate agents here that are able to get you above asking price offers on a regular basis. So for me, it's a very easy question. Is an iBuyer worth it? Absolutely not. That's just one man's opinion. I'd love to get your opinion down in the comments below. I'm Zach Walker, your Texas local lender. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you for tuning into the channel, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.